Welcome to another episode of Real Talk with Mima. Here we talk honestly about health, wellness, and the realities of sexual and gender-based violence within our community. I'm your host, Jemima. So whether you are an enthusiast, a survivor, or someone that just want to learn, you are welcome. Let's learn, let's create change one conversation at a time. Today we'll talk about something that we've had a lot of times people talk about it, especially when it comes to the issues of sex and relationships, whether it's a romantic relationship or a sexual relationship. We hear these things come up times and times again. Now we are talking about consent. What is consent? A lot of people feel and believe they know what consent is, but do they really know what consent entails? Now, consent simply means agreeing to give permission to do something. So I'm consenting to go to Kano. I'm consenting to go to Kaduna with you. This is consent. So, but now we'll dive into consent in terms of relationship, what it entails. This episode is particularly important, especially to us that have younger ones, to parents, to guardians, even to teachers, because we need to teach the younger ones what contents really mean. Because for them to understand this, it doesn't have to be direct. A lot of people shy away talking about sexual issues with their children because they assume it's going to be vulgar, it's going to be too detailed. But when it comes to consent, it doesn't really have to be that. So first of all, we'll take a look at what is consent and what consent is not. Okay. So now we're going to start with consent. We've already defined consent is agreeing or giving permission for something. It doesn't matter what it is. So, but first of all, consent really needs to be freely given. Any consent that is not freely given is not consent. What is consent that is freely given? It's consent that is given without pressure, without manipulation, or without you saying, if you don't do this, I'm not going to do this. So now, when consent is freely given, there should be no fear of abandonment. There should not be fear of being threatened. There should not be manipulation, and there should not be pressure. So now, if a person is afraid of being beaten, for example, you are tired and your husband or your spouse, your boyfriend comes in and he wants to have sex with you, and you know he has a temper. So if you said no, it's going to be problem. So for you to avoid this problem, this fight, this beating, you just said okay. Now that's not consent, that's coercion. Or if you are being feared that if I don't do it, he's not going to keep on feeding me, or she is not going to keep on feeding me. Now that's also consent. For nieces and nephews that have been abused, some of them, they agree because they know they don't have anywhere to go. Orphans, this is their last hope. If they don't agree, they are going to be abandoned. So agreeing to such things, that's not consent. Or if they are being threatened, if you don't do this, I'm going to fail you, you're not going to pass your exams, I'm going to unalive you, I'm going to do that to your sister, that's not consent. Or if you are having, someone is giving you consent based on the fact that they feel they owe you something, now that's not consent. So what are we trying to say? Consent is not, if you don't do this, I'll leave you. Consent is not, after all I've done for you, if you refuse to sleep with me. Consent is not, you are my wife, so you don't have a choice. That's not consent. Consent, like we said, should be freely given. Now consent should also be informed. As health practitioners, we have this we call it informed consent, where you tell the patient everything that is going to happen to him. Like a person is going for surgery, you tell the person, we are going to take you for surgery, we are going to remove this, we are going to cut this part of your body, this is why we need to do this, and this is what will happen if we do not, but this is also what will happen if we do. So now, that's informed consent. When it comes to sexual and gender-based sexual relationship, let's put it this way. When it comes to sexual relationship, consent, the person that is going to give consent must fully understand what they are getting themselves into, what are they agreeing into, what is the risks involved, what and what is going to be done to their body. These are things that the person have to understand. And then if the person do not understand this and he said yes, that is not consent. So for example, if you tell the person, I'm going to use a condom, and you are not using a condom, and you don't even have intention of using a condom, that is not consent, even if the person agrees. Or you are having a sexually transmitted infection and you did not tell the person, that is not consent, because the person did not consent to being at risk of contracting a particular infection or not. Or you are misleading somebody about your intentions. Do this, I'm going to marry you, a lot of things, right? Now that's not consent, that's manipulation, that's putting somebody under pressure. A key part about consent is this: consent is reversible. Consent is reversible. This is very important and it cannot be overemphasized. Just because I said yes the first time, it does not mean I want to say yes and I cannot say no for the second time. Just because I said yes today does not mean I cannot say no tomorrow. Just because I said yes to one act, it does not mean I'm saying yes to all other acts. It is reversible. So this no should be respected immediately by a person. So keep in mind, consent is not a life sentence. It's not as if once you said yes, it's yes, 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 always. The person have the right to say no. And the person that no is being said to have to respect this right. So another thing about consent, consent should be specific. What do we mean when we say consent should be specific? If I consented to kissing, it does not mean I've consented to other acts. If I consented to hugging, it does not mean I've consented to kissing or even having sex. And then another thing, especially those with spouses, just being married does not give automatic consent. So it means that at each and every time that the person consented to one sexual act or the other, it is your duty to respect the boundaries in which the person have said. If this person said, I'm consenting only to hugs, I'm consenting only to kisses, this is specific and this is what you have to respect as an individual in a relationship of any kind with people. Now, we'll talk about what consent is not, right? Consent is not silence. Just because somebody touch you and you say, and she no move now, she no talk, it doesn't matter. Consent is not silent. Consent is not being married. Consent is not lack of resistance. Some people will not even resist because they are afraid of being beaten. So consent is not silence. Consent is not lack of resistance. Consent is not being married. Consent is not being in a relationship. Just because you are in a relationship does not mean you have to have sexual relations with the person that you are in relationship with. Consent is not dressing a certain way. She dress with miniskirt now, it means say she like her. That's not consent. Consent is not being alone with somebody. The person you are dating or you are in a relationship with should be comfortable being in a place with you alone without the fear of being abused. The children that are left with you should be free with you, being alone with you without the fear of being abused. And then consent is not having consented in the past. It means now dole either touch so you will continue like that. No, like we said, consent is reversible. So just because I said consent now, it does not mean tomorrow I'm going to say yes. Now also remember that if a person is asleep, if a person is unconscious, if a person is intoxicated, if a person is mentally unstable or incapacitated, and if a person is underage, they cannot give consent. I repeat, a person is asleep, a person is unconscious, a person is intoxicated, a person is mentally incapacitated or unstable, and then a person is underage, they cannot give consent. Having any form of sexual relation with these people is considered as a sexual and gender-based violence. So we can talk about misconceptions. A lot of people say consent does not apply in marriage. Of course, consent do apply in marriage. And then also people feels that when a woman said no, she actually means yes. No means no, and no does not mean and try to convince me. No does not mean try harder. No does not mean ignoring. She's just being hard to get. She's just being hard to get. A no is a no. A no does not mean just try harder a little bit and I'm going to succumb. Now, when you are trying harder, you are putting pressure, and then the consent is not freely given. So a no means a no. Ignoring a no is a form of violence which is punishable. And then they said men can't control themselves. We don't believe that. A lot of times people use this as an excuse to excuse violence. But that shouldn't be an excuse. It shouldn't. A no means no, and then men can and should control themselves. And then people believe that talking about consent, about sexuality, it encourages people to think more about sex. No, it really doesn't work like that. It doesn't help people to be immoral. Rather, it teaches your child the aspect of respect. It teaches your child the aspect of boundaries. It teaches your child the aspect of safety and healthy relationships. Even as children, later on in the episode, we'll talk to you how you can explain to your children how they can give consent. So now, in relationship, it's very important that we communicate, we respect each other's opinion, we respect each other's choices as to when they want to have any sexual relationship, and then the extent at which they wanted to have relationship with. So when it comes to emotional blackmail, spiritual threats, financial control, violence, these are things that people use to manipulate a person into giving consent. But now, is that consent really a consent based on what we've discussed so far? Now, how do we teach people, the young ones that we have within us, how do we teach them about consent? For children, young children, we don't have to go into deep. We just have to teach them about body anatomy. Especially in schools, little children, you teach them about areas of don't touch. You don't touch the breast, you don't touch. These are your private parts. Teach the children, these are body anatomy. These are areas that no one is allowed to touch except you, or when you give the person permission. Let me give you an example. I know a little girl that we've taught her of don't touch. You don't touch the bum bum, you don't touch this and this. So she offended somebody, and then the auntie spanked her on her bum bum. The next thing she said is, "Mommy, don't touch." You understand? This is somebody that have learned about body anatomy at a very tender age, at the age of 2. Now, teach your younger ones they can say no to hugs and kisses. If somebody is trying to hug them or kiss them, they can tell the person no. My sister have a baby, and even at the age of 2, she does not allow anybody, even if it is a family member, to kiss. Even if it is on the cheek, she doesn't allow it. And she taught her child that now these are safety measures that we put for our little children, and then tell them that their body belongs to them and the final decision is their own. Believe me, you, no matter how young they are, they will learn these things. Also, things that you need to teach them is that secret about touching is not good. Somebody will touch them and they'll tell them, don't tell your mommy. Please tell them keeping secrets about touching anybody parts is not okay. they should always tell you. Bring them close so that they will feel loved to be able to confide in you. They can also talk to a trusted adult about anybody touching any part of their body that is a don't touch area. For adolescents, we can teach them to be honest and know about boundaries, about peer pressure, about online consent, and even respect during dating. These are things that we can teach our adolescents. And then, so parents and caregivers, please listen to your children. Listen when they talk. You should listen more than you say. Sometimes they want to tell you these things, but they don't even know how. They want to tell you these things, but they are even afraid. And then don't dismiss their questions. A friend of mine called me that her daughter came back from Islamia, and they told them in Islamia that zina is not good. And then she asked the mother, "Mommy, what is zina?" And then the mother was confused as to how to answer this question. So she called me and was asking me, "Mima, how am I going to explain to this girl what zina is?" I said, you don't have to go deep, but you take it a step at a time. These are things that we need. Entertain questions from your children. And most of the times when we are entertaining questions from our children, that is when we know they are being exposed to one form of information or the other, that we will correct them. Be approachable. These kids are yours. These younger ones are yours. If you are always frowning face and they cannot come to talk to you about anything. They can't talk to you about anything. So if children learn consent at home, they are safer outside. This is one way we tend to keep our children safe. Thank you for joining us on this episode of Real Talk with Mima. So if you've learned something, leave a comment, subscribe, and leave a like as you wish. I'll see you on the next episode where we dive more into various aspects regarding sexual and gender-based violence. Bye.